Hey everyone, welcome back to Bleach Brave Souls. So today guys, we're going to do a little bit of a different video. We're going to have a discussion about the future of Bleach Brave Souls and what direction the game is going to take, if it's going to survive for a lot longer, if it's going to die, because a lot of people have been talking about, oh, after the Fullbring arc, after Ginjo and Ichigo final forms are released, there's nothing to do. And that's not true, guys. We have to remember that K-Lab is not some indie developer. They're a professional gaming company. And I would be inclined to believe that a company like that would have the future of the game mapped out pretty clearly for some time into the future. They're not just winging it over there. I guarantee that. So, what are the possible directions the game could take? Well, first of all, we should talk about what criteria they will use to decide what characters to put out in future gachas. And for me personally, just off the top of my head, and I'm freestyling this video, guys, so if I miss some points, you'll have to excuse me, but I think there's two criteria that K-Lab uses to decide what characters to put into a gacha. And the first one is character popularity. You're not going to have a gacha with some, relatively minor characters. The characters that are unpopular, the characters that people are not willing to spend orbs on or spend money on. They just won't make a gacha with those characters. If they do, it'll be, two really popular characters and then maybe like a third less popular character. The second criteria I think K-Lab uses to decide on their gachas is how significant is the character to the actual storyline. Now sometimes these two criteria, popularity and significance to the plot, they don't always coincide. Sometimes there's a character that's not very popular, but he's very important to the actual story. One example of this would be the character of Yami. Yami is not a popular character. I don't think anyone would argue that he is, but he does kind of play a big role in the story. I mean, he encounters Ichigo several times. He's like Ulquiorra's sidekick. And we find out that he is, spoilers, Espada Zero, and he fights Kenpachi and Byakuya. So, I mean, if he's the most powerful Espada rank-wise, and he's done all these things, he's appeared in all these, he's fought Chad, Rukia, Renji, he fought the Kenpachi, he fought Ichigo, he fought Byakuya. He's had like a lot of screen time, so a character like that, he might be a candidate for a gacha. There's also characters like Zomari, who are Espadas, but they're not really popular either. But I mean, for completionist's sake, I kind of think that you do have to have all the Espadas. So Zomari, Yami, and Aronero. Maybe not in the same gacha, because I don't think those three characters in a single gacha would be very successful unless you made them very strong and overpowered, which is another possibility. If the character is not popular, K-Lab could just make the character really powerful, and people will want that character. So that's another factor to consider, guys. But what direction could they take? Alright, so there's a couple directions they could take. They could go into the manga storyline, the Quincy arc. They could go back into the story they've already covered and just fill in the gaps of characters who are missing. They could go into the movie stories, and they could go into some just kind of filler characters, filler fun characters, like with the White Day or with the Christmas or any of those gachas. So there's a couple different directions they could go in, or it could be a combination of all four. But to be honest, guys, the least likely scenario I see right now is going into the Quincy arc, which I'm very disappointed that I feel that way, because I would love to see those Quincy characters in the game. I mean, you got Hashwad, you got different forms of all the Soul Reapers. So if K-Lab were to get the go-ahead to proceed into the manga story arc, the Quincy arc, that could extend the game's life by quite a long time. I don't even want to speculate on how long or what characters would come out from that arc, but you gotta think, there's all the Sternritter, there's so many Sternritter, and there's different versions of all the Soul Reapers. I don't want to spoil anything in case you guys haven't read the manga, but there's different versions of almost every captain, almost every vice captain. There's just tons of different versions of characters. There's tons of new enemies, and it's easily enough for another year or two of content. So while it would be great and amazing, and I would be so hyped if they went into that arc, I just don't think it's going to happen, because there's a couple of obstacles to K-Lab doing that. And the first one being, obviously, they have to get the rights to use the manga material. And that's a separate entity from using the anime material. So that's a whole process in itself. So assuming that K-Lab were to get the rights to use the manga material, there's then another issue of whether or not they would have the go-ahead to take creative liberties with those characters, because they would definitely have to do that, guys. Make no mistake. There are no voices for these characters. There's no animations to go off from an anime. So K-Lab would have to kind of come up with their own voices and their own animations. And I'm not sure that they would be given that creative liberty. So this is not to be underestimated, guys. If they were to make a character, for example, you watch, right? So they'd have to come up with his voice, right? And they would have to come up with how the character would look in his gameplay and in his special animations. So that's a lot, guys. And you know, for K-Lab to be given that creative liberty, I don't know if Kubo or whoever has the rights to that material would be willing to let K-Lab create those for themselves. But that's not to say it can't happen, guys, because we've seen characters that have had very little source material to go on, and K-Lab has made characters who there's very little source material for. Like, for example, we'll take Jushiro. Jushiro is a great example. They made a 5-star version of him, and they just gave him a bunch of fire attacks and ice attacks, and they just used some generic Kido for his special. They could go that route, but I mean, I don't see it happening because the Stern Ritters, they have such unique abilities, and even the new captains that they would have to do would have such unique abilities that you can't just tack on like some generic Kido or sword slashing animation. You'd have to animate it. You'd have to animate their actual powers because you can't do generic animations for those characters. They have unique power sets. So that is a huge obstacle, guys. So if K-Lab were to get those permissions and the ability to take creative liberties with the material, they could definitely go into the Quincy arc, and like I said, it would stretch out the content for at least a year, maybe 2. But once again, it comes back to the popularity of that actual arc. How popular is that arc? I don't really know. James Hansen probably would, because he looks at those numbers, but I'm not certain that it would be as popular as we all Bleach fans, hardcore Bleach fans, think they would be. But that's just my speculation, guys. Don't hold me to that. It may very well be that they do go into the manga arc, and I will be the first one to be getting hyped. So that's my thoughts on the manga content. I think there's a lot of obstacles, but I would love to see it. I'm sure you guys would all love to see it as well. As for the other directions they could go back into the story and fill in the gaps with characters that haven't had versions yet. There's definitely some people that need 6-star versions. Off the top of my head, I can think of a canon Rangiku, a canon Kira, the Espadas that are missing. There's some vice captains that are missing. Well, I mean, I've already mentioned the 2 vice captains, but there's like minor characters like Chojiro, the vice captain for the 1st division. There's Lisa from the Vizards, doesn't have a 6-star version. You could even go back into the Turn Back the Pendulum arc, if you guys remember, where they drew past Kisuke and past Yoruichi and past Tessai from. There's other characters in that little mini arc alone that you could do. You could even do like a child summoning gacha, well, maybe not child, but younger versions of, Gin. You can do a younger version of like Byakuya. You could do younger versions of Mayuri. There's so many characters, guys. Even if they were just to go back into the story and fill in the gaps, there is a ton of characters. And if I can think of this many characters, K-Lab can definitely think of this many characters. There's Tensa Zangetsu, who's actually in the game right now. He has a character model. If you don't remember who that is, it's Ichigo's inner Zanpakuto spirit, who has half of him is a hollow, and half of him is young man Zangetsu. So that's a character they could do. They could go back and do Kaname, Hollow Kaname, or even non-Hollow Kaname, just Hoikomundo Kaname. That could be a version. That character already has a model in the game. There's so much they could do, guys. There's still tons and tons of characters that are relatively popular and would be worthy of gachas. There's the past Nelliel when she was an Espada. They could do that character. That would be pretty hype. I would definitely pull on that gacha. I mean, if you could even go further back, you could do Ryukin. You could do Ichigo's friends. You could do Tatsuki. Tatsuki's pretty popular for even though she has a small role in the story, she is a popular character. And Ichigo's sister, Karin, got a version. Why not Yuzu? They could do Yuzu, like maybe swinging some pots and pans or something. I don't know. She's like usually the cook in the house, so maybe there's some ideas there. They could do Ishin as his dad version. They could do Ichigo as his school version. They could do all different kinds of special event characters. Kind of similar to the summer gacha or the Halloween gacha or the Christmas gacha. They could do characters that are just for fun, in different outfits. Maybe you have a fireman, whatever, Chad, or Nurse, Rangiku, whatever you want. You could do all kinds of stuff like that, guys. And I haven't even dipped into all the filler arcs that Bleach has had. You know, I know that the Bount arc isn't very popular, but they could do a few characters from there. They could do a few characters from the movies. I know some people would love to see movie characters. There's like Dark Rukia, Hellverse, Ichigo. Tons of material, guys. So I wouldn't worry about the future of the game. There are tons of characters to do. Tons of directions KLab could go. So I'm not really worried about the future of this game or the lack of material. There is tons and tons of material, guys. And if you know anything about Bleach, you should be fairly confident in that as well. I guess that's all I have for this video, guys. Let me know what you think. This is a big topic because we're getting towards the end of the Fullbring arc. And the only characters really left of significance are Ginjo and Ichigo in his Bankai form. So, I mean, there's usually a third character. I don't even know who that could possibly be. Maybe it's Uryu. It kind of has to be Uryu because, to be honest, there's no one left from the specific Fullbring gacha. They've done everyone. All the Fullbringers have done. All the Fullbring captains and vice captains have been done. And yeah, they've done a version of Orihime. You know, they could do Chad. I don't know. He didn't really do much. Uryu did a little more in that arc than Chad did. But yeah, we are coming to the end of that arc. So now is the time to speculate on where are we going next. I definitely want to see manga characters #1 above any of that other content I mentioned. Manga characters, Quincy characters. That would be amazing, and I would not have a problem with KLab taking creative liberty with their voices or with their animations. I'm fine with that. You know, I think they will actually do a pretty good job with it. If they don't go there, there's still plenty of directions to go, guys. Don't worry about it. If you love this game, they're going to pump out the content. They already have a plan for this, I guarantee it. KLab, like I said, they're not some ghetto indie developer on Kickstarter. They're a professional company. I think they might even be publicly traded. But let me know what you think in the comments. Where do you want the game to go? Where do you not want it to go? What do you think the possibilities are for manga characters, for going back into anime? Just like special event characters. There's so many possibilities. You know, they could even do the less popular characters. I don't know. Maybe they'll do a combination of everything. But that's all I have for this video, guys. Let me know what you think. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow with something else. Bye-bye.